So I wanted to start with each of you a quick question on how you tailor workforce retention and recruitment and improvement strategies to your specific agencies. There's tools out there that are common, whether they be bonuses or rotations to the private sector, but we all know that you also have to cater them to your specific agency. So we'll start with Brian and just go down the line on how you address that.
So with the FBI today, we're working multiple facets of that hiring and retention. One of the big issues is, of course, pay. We are working to make sure that we can compete with them, but again, we can only compete at a certain level. So what we have to do to retain the folks is also doing retention bonuses. Retention bonuses could be up to 25% of their salary. Other things that we can offer them are university education repayment programs. So we can possibly offer up to $10,000 per year to repay loans. The university education program will also pay for their university. So if we want to increase the skill sets and the education level for our personnel, we have options such as that. One of the big pieces with our cyber readiness section within our cyber division of FBI is we're offering our personnel basically about $10,000 to $12,000 a year for up to 2 classes of certain types of technical courses. So these are certification courses or courses that'll help them with the cyber aspects of our jobs.
Don?
Okay, so DoD is a lot of different components and organizations, and so each one was kind of working, similar things, in terms of educational, paying for education and other things, retention bonuses and such. But DoD just recently got approval for the cyber accepted service, and so what that is. It's a DoD-wide program that's going to allow us to standardize across the entire department for various cyber skills and pay them at higher rates. And so, I think that, along with the educational benefits and flexible schedules and being able to telecommute and other things, actually allows us to be competitive. And then we're also looking at how do we actually make it easier for people to transition back and forth between private industry and government. And so I think that's critical as we go forward in the future, since cyber is a team sport. And my personal opinion is even people, that's a good model to, as people get trained up and go out and help our other critical areas and industries like critical infrastructure, financial, e-commerce and things.
So Sean, DHS has taken a little bit of a different tack. We've established the DHS cybersecurity personnel system, and it's not an IT system, but it's a system and approach to ensure that we have uniformity across the department on how we look at entry-level talent, intermediate talent, as well as senior talent in cybersecurity, to ensure that all hiring managers, all persons associated with the human capital offices understand what authorities the department has for recruitment, loan reimbursement for student loans, retention bonuses for folks that are exploring their intermediate portions of their career, as well as understanding that finance is not the exclusive driver for cybersecurity. It's ensuring that we have some sort of work-life balance, so in allowing for flexible telework agreements, addressing alternate work schedules, and also where we have bona fide needs and for deep cyber talent, maybe even opportunities for 100% remote access or remote working environments to support the department's mission. So we're kind of taking a holistic approach to ensure that we have consistency across the department.
Thanks for that. And Steve, as you mentioned, it's not only a financial motivation in this space, but on the other hand, it is a big motivation. We hear a lot about, there's obviously a lot of money in this sector, in the private sector, which is a lure that government constantly has to compete with. So realistically, what are the goals that you set at your agencies for retaining people? And can these bonuses realistically compete with what we're seeing at the private sector? Or are you just sort of, not resigned, but are you realistic about how long you want to retain someone? Are you accepting the fact that eventually he or she will be ending up in the private sector? Whoever wants to take that first.
How about I start? Philosophically, we're looking at the problem differently. Historically, we've looked at recognizing people for tenure and years of experience. But in this particular area, we're looking at the change in philosophy where we're going to have persons that are going to come and go into our mission, maybe move across our mission, but even may work in industry and come back with additional skills that are of value for DHS. So when we look at it, it's not a necessity to be a cybersecurity. We're looking at a broad definition of cybersecurity and also looking at ensuring that we have a bona fide needs in certain elements. Some portions of our mission may require deep forensics experience. Some portion of our mission may require security operations. Some may require security architectural work. Depending on that mission, that'll drive the incentives that might be available for that particular part of the mission, but it's going to be driven by the bona fide need for that mission, the, let's say, limitations or challenges in hiring that type of talent, and then having a recognized need that that talent may not be necessarily wed to a long-term career in that particular mission. It may move.
Brian, do you want to take that?
Again, we're competing with private industry. We've had people who are making $250,000 a year, and the most I can offer them maybe is $150,000. So the one thing we do tell folks is, we can't pay you as much as private industry, but we can give you mission. We can let you work on finding our spies, the terrorists, the actors who are doing bad things to our country. So we can give you mission all day long. And most people, when they come in, we always say, once they hit that 3-year mark, that's really a good mark that they're going to be sticking with the Bureau much longer. But as you said, there's at a certain point where they're going to be wanting to leave. Again, maybe that 10 to 13-year point where folks have to make those midlife decisions, and they're being lured by the private industry, and we can only give them the good work at that point and try to give them a good work environment. We don't have the ability to do the telework because of the classified systems we're working on, so it makes it much more difficult. But the FBI is even trying new strategies, such as allowing folks to work in remote offices so that they don't have to travel into DC, for example. So we're going to start a pilot with that just to see how well it works. Again, it'll help improve morale.
Yeah, so I think similar to what Steve had said for DHS, right? We're kind of looking at the range of skills, and we're trying to make sure we have hiring entry-level, mid-level, senior level, and we're trying to make sure that we have the right hiring of numbers so that we actually have a good, I'll say, pipeline or career growth for people with the expectations that they're going to come in, they're going to work for some number of years. Some people are going to leave. But then we'd like to see if we can also get some of those to come back. And again, I think, as Brian said, I think once people get in and they experience the mission, they get excited about it. And so I think that's why probably we're all here and why I've seen people actually take significant pay cuts to come work, to support the Department of Defense, the men and women in uniform, and our warfighters. Yeah.
All right. One question I had for you all, as you alluded to, cybersecurity can be a very broad sector and topic. On the other hand, there are specific skill sets, incident response, secure software build, risk management, and different specialists for each one of those. So my question is, how do you make sure you're communicating clearly with the type of workforce you're trying to attract in terms of what skill sets you're looking for? FBI is obviously a different skill set often than what you're looking for at DHS or DoD. How do you cater your recruitment to that and make sure that you're still casting a broad net for the type of talent that you want to bring into the agency?
So I think this is really a partnership with the CHICO. The CIO organization, the IT organization needs to understand its mission, kind of understand where its priorities are, whether that's in architectural areas, and that's application development, network response, and then communicating where you see limitations in that workforce and working with the CHICO to understand where you might see evolutions. So if I have a particular part of the organization that might have very a high number of senior people but no entry level, I may have to start talking about how do I ensure succession planning. In areas where I may go into new technologies, maybe cloud architecture, and I may not have the necessary skills available, how do I use that as a recruitment to bring on the type of skills? But what I found is it's a collaboration of understanding your business, understanding your priorities, and ensuring you're clearly articulating the human capital to make sure they understand how to support you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you made, and we recognize that we needed to have kind of standard kind of definitions and expectations, skills for various categories. of our cybersecurity workforce. And so part of our cyber accepted service was actually clearly defining several categories with the appropriate skills needed in those categories so that we could be more uniform and consistent across the entire department.
And over the last year, the FBI has been looking at this to where we've actually created new position descriptions. So we can bring in the digital operations specialist, the data analyst, the data scientist, again, to hit those specific areas and niches that we need these individuals. We're also using our direct hire authority to identify those individuals who can meet those, as opposed to putting out a posting and getting really a bunch of generalists. We're really looking for those specialists who can help us in those areas. And again, then use all the tools that we have at our discretion to help bring those individuals in to be as competitive as we can.
Right. One of the big issues here is obviously workforce morale. And I wanted each of you, if you could, to touch on, basically assess the state of the morale in your workforce. What's one thing that you're trying to improve, and how are you tackling that? Because this is a demanding field. I mean, like you said, people get excited by the mission. On the other hand, you want to make sure that people aren't burnt out by it and are motivated each day to come into work. So whoever wants to tackle that first on workforce morale.
I'll start. I got to be honest, and if I look at the morale of the cyber workforce, extremely dedicated to the mission. The hours and commitment that I'm finding in that workforce are astonishing. I can't say that I would look at it as a negative morale. They want to do more. And what we are trying to do to ensure that they understand how they tie in is understanding how their value in whatever particular discipline they have ties to the DHS mission, and then actually ties to the protection of the homeland. And we're able to do that. That shows a long-term commitment to my mission, and it's of value to supporting cybersecurity at DHS.
And the morale for the FBI, it is very high, especially in the technical areas. Again, we're providing our folks a lot of the tools and capabilities they need to do their job, and where we're not, we're working with our CIO, our finance folks, to try to bring in the better tools, the better capabilities, so that our folks can be innovative. The more innovative they're allowed to be, the less bureaucracy we put on them, the easier it is for them to do their mission. And again, when they read in the papers the folks that we're arresting, the disruptions that we have, it really builds that morale. It shows them that they're actually there doing something for our nation.
And as we've mentioned before, FBI, there have been some senior cyber personnel who have gone to the private sector, as others have. And those have made the news, obviously. But from where you see it, it's a broader workforce. I mean, it's a deep roster of people that are at the Bureau working on cyber. I mean, can you address sort of the narrative about those people leaving to the private sector?
We have a lot of folks who are actually retiring. During the 90s, they had a hiring freeze, and then they picked up the hiring. So we're at that point where we're going to start seeing more people retiring just because we had that influx of personnel. The folks, again, who I talked about who are potentially leaving between that 10 to 13 years are making those midlife decisions for their families, for their future career. Do they want to spend that last 10 years before retirement, or can they actually go out to private industry, potentially live somewhere else, do something more? But overall, the number of folks that are leaving from the cyber perspective is very small across the entire organization.
Don, did you want to hit on morale?
Yeah, the only thing I totally agree with both what Steve and Brian said, but also I would say we also recognize that, and if you've heard the adage, people quit people before they quit organizations or mission, right? And so we have a focused effort on ensuring leadership development, and understanding how to actually be a good leader for this very critical workforce.
Gentlemen, the clock has expired. Thanks so much for your time, for being here, and for sharing your perspective. Appreciate it.